So today, lads, we're going to talk a little bit about the fourth quarter, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how the Atlanta Dream, in my opinion, just had no answer for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever in that fourth quarter. And realistically, for quite a bit of the second half, they had no answer for an aggressive.
What if the most feared player in a league was officially ranked as the 9th best at her position? It sounds like a joke, but it's exactly what the WNBA's coaches and general managers did to Caitlin Clark before the season even started. They publicly dismissed her as a mid-tier guard, a rookie who still had a lot to learn. But behind closed doors, they were already drawing up frantic game plans to stop a player they knew was a generational talent. The hypocrisy is stunning, and after the Indiana Fever's dominant win over the Atlanta Dream, the truth was impossible to ignore.
Let me say this about the Atlanta Dream. Y'all was hanging in there for 2 quarters, but then y'all ran out of gas. Because you know why? The Indiana Fever ran y'all out y'all own building, and it was a sight to see. Y'all was huffing and puffing, trying to get some air and find some extra wind, and y'all couldn't.
When the final buzzer sounded and the Fever had secured a 91-84 victory, the camera panned to Atlanta Dream coach Tanisha Wright. She wasn't just disappointed, she looked utterly defeated, her expression a mix of frustration and forced respect. This wasn't the look of a coach who had just been beaten by the 9th best point guard. It was the look of a coach who had thrown every defensive scheme in the book at one player, only to watch her dismantle it piece by piece. Her team had been physically aggressive. They had run multiple defenders at Clark, but none of it mattered. The plan had failed, and the stunned look on her face said it all.
Today, there's no surprise that the Indiana Fever looked best tonight when the offense was ran through Caitlin Clark. There's no surprise that the offense looked best tonight when we push the ball off of a make, push the ball off of a miss. There's no surprise that the Indiana Fever looked best tonight when Caitlin Clark was surrounded by players that don't have an ego, surrounded by players that said, I'm going to be MVP of the WNBA this year. You see how easy it is when you just let Caitlin play ball and others follow suit?
So what does an unleashed Caitlin Clark actually look like? Against the Dream, it wasn't a 30-point explosion. It was something far more terrifying for the rest of the WNBA. With 16 points, 7 assists, and 4 rebounds, she controlled the very soul of the game. She abandoned the passive, spot-up shooting role she'd been forced into early in the season and became the aggressor. She put her head down, attacked the rim, and forced the defense to collapse on her, opening up the entire floor for her teammates. She was a maestro conducting an orchestra of chaos, and the Dream defense could do nothing but react, always one step behind. This was the player who broke college basketball, finally set free.
They made sure Caitlin Clark had the ball in her hands. She became the creator of offense. That's what we've been saying. Her and Aaliyah Boston, I believe it was 4 times, got the Stockton-Malone 2-man game working. Dantas got involved at one point with Caitlin Clark. Caitlin was still off on her shooting tonight.
This is where the coach's hypocrisy is so glaring. They're the ones who voted her as the 9th best guard, yet they game plan for her as if she's Michael Jordan. They don't give this level of defensive attention to anyone else. They design special traps, full court presses, and physical borderline dirty tactics specifically for her. They treat her like the single biggest threat on the court, and then turn around and tell the media she's not even in the top tier. Their actions betray their words. They don't fear the 8th best guard, they fear Caitlin Clark.
Even when she wasn't exactly getting when it wasn't her putting the ball in the basket or her showing up on the stat sheet, she was burning Jordan Canada. And people don't understand how good Jordan Canada is on defense. She was absolutely burning Jordan Canada. Canada could not stay in front of her. And that is a big thing. That is genuinely a big, big thing. That if you can't stay in front of her, it creates a space for everybody else. And there were some hockey assists. There was good ball movement. There was a lot of things. There was a lot of real positives when it came to Caitlin Clark today.
But this goes beyond just tough defense. There's a clear pattern of physicality that seems aimed at intimidation, and it all boiled over in the game against the Chicago Sky. That's when Chennedy Carter delivered a brutal cheap shot, blindsiding Clark with a shoulder check while she was waiting for an inbound pass, nowhere near the ball. It wasn't a basketball play, it was a blatant assault designed to send a message. This was the league's violent welcome, and it exposed a dark undercurrent of resentment toward the rookie star.
Obviously, tough game. I thought we had a good first half. We were really competitive. Second half, we just had so many defensive breakdowns, and give them credit. They were getting extra possessions, and those extra possessions were turning into points just about every single time. So, just valuing ending their possession. It's not enough to force a tough shot. We got to come down with the ball. And then, we had some defensive breakdowns that they made us pay for. They were able to extend the lead. And then at the end, we had to, do some gambling and do some things that really were not that.
The fallout from that incident was even more revealing. In the post-game press conference, Chennedy Carter refused to even answer questions about Clark, stating, "I ain't answering no Caitlin Clark questions." Meanwhile, cameras caught her teammate Angel Reese jumping off the bench and smirking in celebration of the cheap shot. The league initially called it a common foul, only upgrading it to a flagrant one after a massive public outcry. The message was clear. The league's established players were targeting Clark, and the institution itself seemed hesitant to protect its biggest star.
How the Atlanta Dream were able to really neutralize Caitlin Clark in the first half, and I know Caitlin Clark had 5 first half assists, but they were able to neutralize Caitlin Clark's impact on the game in that first half. And in the second half, regardless of the box score numbers, how Caitlin completely took over. So the big way they were able to neutralize Caitlin Clark, and I think it was almost an issue with Stephanie White as much as anything, is they were...
This storm of controversy forced a critical change, not from the league, but from within the Indiana Fever. Coach Christy Sides had spent the early part of the season trying to fit her supernova talent into a pre-existing, slower-paced system. But after seeing Clark targeted and realizing passivity wasn't working, she finally handed her the keys. The strategy shifted to a simple, powerful idea. Let Clark be Clark. The result was immediate. With the ball in her hands and the freedom to control the pace, the Fever's offense became dynamic, unpredictable, and lethal.
You saw Clark sort of gaining her rhythm as the game went along, sort of returning to her form as the game went along, finding that pep in her step as the game went along, even though the shooting numbers were tour dates again, and she's got to find that shooting stroke at some point. Look, it can't go on all year, but you understand where some of those struggles come from when you deal with a quad injury and then a groin injury, and you're thrust back into the lineup and you're trying to find your way. But I do think it was the way that Clark found her way to the basket that was the difference in this game, really. That was what changed the dynamic.
The effect on the rest of the team was like a tidal wave. Suddenly, Aliyah Boston, who had struggled to find her rhythm, was getting perfectly placed passes for easy layups. Kelsey Mitchell was getting wide-open looks from 3 because defenses were terrified to leave Clark for even a second. Clark doesn't just score, she elevates. She has a gravitational pull that creates space and opportunity for everyone around her. That's not the impact of a middling guard. That's the sign of a true franchise cornerstone, a player you build an entire system around.
One bad game. It's been an inconsistent ride for Indiana and for Clark as well, who's had to fight through a lot of injuries. But I think the encouraging thing from Cece was the fight that she showed on the floor. Clearly, she's not quite at 100%, still working her way back, hasn't found her 3-ball yet, but what she did was attack. She used the physicality against the defenders by putting her head down and going to the basket. That opened things up for her playmaking, which of course is another genius aspect of her game. Once that started clicking, the Fever ran away with things. Sophie Cunningham was everywhere. Clark had it going with Aliyah Boston again. Kelsey Mitchell was cooking. And all of a sudden, you look up and the Fever are lighting up the score.
What makes her performance even more unbelievable is the fact that she's been doing it all while hurt. For weeks, she was listed on the injury report with a sore ankle, fighting through pain that would sideline other players. She never made excuses or complained. She just kept showing up, absorbing the physical punishment and finding new ways to dominate. The league thought they could break her with physicality, but they didn't realize she was already playing through pain. Their attempts to intimidate her were nothing compared to the battle she was already fighting.
They were manhandling Caitlin Clark early in that game. Like, they had 2 hands on her. They were fully getting into the we are grabbing her and we don't really care. Like, that was their goal. Their goal was they were out there to maul Caitlin Clark. They had no, they had absolutely no intention of doing anything other than maul.
And this was a really nice all-around game from the Indiana Fever. And some may ask, well, Rhodes, do you feel better about Stephanie White? No, not at all. Because until she proves night in and night out she's willing to put the ball into Caitlin Clark's hand and let her be the creator and innovator on offense, I will not be sold. I will not be sold. The fact is, Caitlin's going to start knocking these shots back down at some point. And all of a sudden, her statistics are going to blow up.
Ultimately, what coaches like Tanisha Wright truly fear isn't just Clark's logo threes. It's her mind. She's a basketball supercomputer who processes the game faster than anyone else on the floor. While defenses are reacting to the last play, she's already 3 steps ahead, reading the rotations and anticipating where the open player will be. You can try to take away her shot, and she'll hit you with a dazzling assist. You can try to deny her the ball, and she'll burn you with an off-ball cut. She is always thinking, always adapting, and that is a problem that you can't solve with a defensive scheme.
Instead of trying to put a square peg in a round hole, this was a tale of two halves. A tale of two halves. A half where the Indiana Fever let Jordan Canada have wide open shots, and a half where they decided to play defense and shut Jordan Canada down and not let Ryan Howard get off. Interesting. A half where we had Caitlin off ball and sitting a lot, sitting on the bench, riding away in the first half, and the second half where, oh my God, she's in the game. Oh my God, they're giving her the ball.
This year. And it's just, all right, I'm going to accept that contact. I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to score on you. And 1. Put the points on the board. You know, Caitlin Clark doing it there. Here's a closer look at that play to sort of give you, you know, an idea of what took place, and the you know, she accepts the contact, gives some back herself, and ultimately gets the bucket. By the way, you know, some size on that dream team, obviously, with Griner inside, and Jones got in foul trouble, which helped.
So we have to ask again, why did the league's coaches and GMs really rank her 9th? Was it professional jealousy of a 22-year-old stealing the spotlight? Was it gatekeeping from veterans who felt she hadn't earned her fame? Or was it a desperate, collective attempt to downplay the reality that a rookie was about to walk in and fundamentally change their league from day one? Whatever the reason, their attempt to humble her has failed spectacularly.
They were getting extra possessions, and those extra possessions were turning into points just about every single time. So, you know, just valuing ending their possession. It's not enough to force a tough shot. We got to come down with the ball. And then, you know, we had some defensive breakdowns that they made us pay for. They were able to extend the lead. And then at the end, we had to, you know, do some gambling and do some things that really we're not that equipped to do. And they made us pay for that as well. And that kind of made the game a little more lopsided.
Every cheap shot, every dismissive comment has only added fuel to the fire. The league tried to put Caitlin Clark in a box, but she burned the box down and is now reshaping the game in her own image. The player they're facing now is more aggressive, more confident, and more in control than ever before. They wanted to test her, but they only succeeded in unlocking her final form. The question was never whether Caitlin Clark could handle the WNBA. The real question is, how long until the WNBA admits it can't handle her?